Hello everybody, Disciple here with Overwatch Curios. Now, if you've heard of Overwatch, and if you're watching this channel you probably have, then you've also heard of TRACER. She's the quintessential poster girl for the IP and one of the first images we glimpsed alongside Winston, Reaper, and Widowmaker during the announcement and the cinematic trailer that followed at BlizzCon back in 2014. She's the game's embodiment of hope, fun, and charisma, and happens to be a very fun and powerful hero to play in the game as well. Now, we've heard so much about TRACER in terms of lore, character development, her interactions with other heroes, and how she fits into the Overwatch roster as a character, but today let's take a look at TRACER and some of the things you might not know about Overwatch's premier hero. Now let's get right into it. We all saw TRACER first during the cinematic trailer. However, the game's development spans much farther back than late 2014, and so does TRACER as well. She was actually one of the first 3 heroes developed for Overwatch, and began the hero development routine alongside Reaper and Widowmaker. So it's no coincidence that you see these 3 make their way into that debut trailer. TRACER would set the stage for the development of all future heroes, and she was the first to be implemented into the game itself. TRACER would also be the hero the other teams would use to test the super early mechanics of the game, like projectile firing and movement. Sort of a crash test dummy for Blizzard's first-person shooter, you could thank TRACER for many of the game's early features that developed into the sharp gameplay we all enjoy. For the development team, being the first hero in the game makes TRACER a bit of a special character for many and symbolized the first real identifiable piece of the large Overwatch project. That turned into her becoming the visual piece for Overwatch early on, and even slated her as the hero to grace the cover of the box art, which is so very recognizable to millions of fans. And it of course makes a lot of sense considering she was Overwatch at the very start. Now, during that initial creation phase, TRACER conceptually began with the idea of a hero that blinked across the map. It's likely that her blinks had a huge distance, and likely a much larger cooldown as well, so that it couldn't be abused. The concept around TRACER was a mix between fighter pilot and track athlete, so you can see where the blink and mobility comes from. Now, if TRACER had kept down this road, she would have probably ended up having a much different playstyle. Instead of a path-oriented short blink, it'd be more like a teleport from one spot of the map to another, giving her massive freedom of movement and making her an almost entirely flank-based attack hero, even more so than she is right now. Now, with the longer cooldown, it would also make using blink a much more tactical decision, sort of like when to use an ultimate or any large damaging ability on other heroes. Of course, you could see how this might be OP in the end, and of course Blizzard changed it to be a little bit more subtle of a movement buff, but it goes to show that the first heroes had a lot of breathing room in their creation phases with all the sorts of ideas that were tested out, and it might have been pretty cool to see how she could blink behind the enemy team, but be forced to stay there for a while, trying to fight in the enemy lines or running back to retreat before she could reset time again and get back to her team. Now, many players have seen the origin skins for heroes in the game, which show off what a particular hero looked like before the present time and circumstances of a story currently in the game, like Strike Commander Morrison or Blackwatch Reyes. TRACER's Slipstream skin is no exception, and it's a direct reference to her backstory. The skin has a serious fighter pilot theme, and it gives TRACER an even more obvious sense of speed and style. The Slipstream skin makes perfect sense when you check out her backstory, which reads, Lena Oxton, callsign TRACER, was the youngest person ever inducted into Overwatch's experimental flight program. Known for her fearless piloting skills, she was handpicked to test the prototype of a teleporting fighter, the Slipstream. But during its first flight, the aircraft's teleportation matrix malfunctioned and it disappeared. Lena was presumed dead. This skin is the uniform she wore while flying the Slipstream plane before her chronal disassociation accident, and as such, it's the only skin where she doesn't have her chronal accelerator. This doesn't make a lot of sense in the game because she can still blink and recall, which are done by using the chronal accelerator, but anal internet comments aside, the skin is definitely awesome and reminds us that TRACER wasn't always a time-traveling superhero. Now, speaking of time travel, let's hop back to a time before TRACER was even TRACER. We all know that Overwatch has its earliest roots in the failed Project Titan, and if you didn't know that fact, we've got a few videos on that too. During Titan's development, one of the classes in the MMO was the Jumper. He could use a high-tech set of gear and a chest piece to blink around the map. He was small, thin, very fast and agile, and had a bit of a parkour vibe to him. The jumper was designed to be a light weapon-carrying, hit-and-run scout that was highly maneuverable and confused his enemies while taking shots at them as well. That sounds kind of familiar, right? Now the jumper even had dual pistols and this circular glowing device on the center of the chest. This character is the direct influence toward TRACER and carried over almost entirely in its conception into Overwatch, and it's even interesting to see how TRACER's lore was formed around the idea of having that chest piece, and maybe the jumpers in Overwatch also went through some sort of weird chronal disassociation event all the way back in that game's lore. Now, it was relatively easy to transfer this one project to the other, and it definitely gave the team a working prototype that they needed to kickstart the project, and it seems like it worked out for them in the end. Now, Overwatch has gone through a lot of changes since the reveal a few years ago. Game mechanics have been added or altered, game modes and events have been thrown in, and heroes have been added and tweaked. Now, some heroes even got complete reworks like Symmetra and Bastion. However, TRACER hasn't been touched. Like, at all. Maybe the only noteworthy change is that her butt pose was removed way back after some controversy, but as far as the hero herself gameplay-wise, not a single tweak since the beginning of closed beta. Just bug fixes and additions to her cosmetic lineup in terms of skins and emotes. Now, this is huge when you stop to think about it, as balancing 23 heroes around each other, maps, gameplay modes, competitive, and more is a massive undertaking that requires constant maintenance and reworking of the entire formula, let alone these individual heroes themselves. The complete lack of changes to TRACER shows off her stability in the roster and just how comfortable the development team is with keeping her right where she should be. TRACER's a solid hero in just about any situation and has a good number of counters while still being a counter to many heroes herself. Her damage is fine and her mobility is second to none. Her ultimate does exactly what it's intended to do, with a decent level of skill required to land properly and a bit of counterplay since you can dodge it or shield it or do a number of things to prevent the damage. All balanced quite nicely with a super small health pool on TRACER herself, making her a bit more challenging to play and master, and making it very rewarding when you can dodge and use your recall to get around enemy abilities. Now everyone knows that TRACER can blink and recall and generally annoy enemy players by doing so, but how does she do it? You may not know. Earlier we talked about the accident that had TRACER slipping in and out of time and space and generally making her life a living hell. But luckily, TRACER has some super smart friends that were able to figure things out. One super smart friend in particular, Winston, was able to design a device that would sort of anchor TRACER into the present and prevent her from disappearing without control. The chronal accelerator is the chest piece she wears and keeps her right where she wants to be. Without it, she has really no control over when and where she blinks out of time. The unintentional side effects of the device are even greater control over her chronal displacement, allowing her to blink and recall, which are her primary abilities in the game. TRACER is also capable of removing her chronal accelerator, and she can still maintain her point in time. This is shown to occur at least twice in Reflections, the Blizzard comic featuring TRACER. Blizzard later stated on social media that as long as TRACER's in the mere vicinity of her chronal accelerator, she can maintain her point in time, which is really cool, and I'm glad that not only they gave us that idea, but that Winston was able to create it in the game's lore. Now here's a fun one. I bet you didn't know that TRACER's hair was originally black instead of brown. In some early concept art pieces, you can see the color difference. Now, it may not be game-changing or a huge thing to some people, but a color difference in design can actually change the attitude, mood, and overall effect of the character. With brown hair and freckles, for example, she can generally be seen as more cute and carefree, while jet black hair and a pale complexion can give off more of a sullen and badass kind of vibe, maybe fitting in with her punk skins. Now, lots of Hero have had minor changes made from their concept art to the finished product to make their visual appearance in line with their lore and how they perform in-game as well. A change in appearance can make a huge difference on how you perceive a hero. Take Reaper's default skin and his origin skin. His classic skin has the mask, hood, cloak, and a much more brooding and sinister look about it. Now, the origin skin, while still dark and mysterious, shows a much more human and relatable character. If Reaper just removed his mask and his classic skin, that would make a massive difference in your perception of the hero from looking at it. Tracer may not have had the full-on, bubbly, cute, carefree appearance she has today if her hair had remained black. Now, while many people think they know all about Tracer because she was the first Overwatch hero they saw and heard about, she's got a few things that you may not have known, and hopefully you now have a better arsenal of Tracer trivia at her disposal. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, I'd love it if you could give it a like and maybe subscribe to the channel down below. I'm curious though, did we miss any facts that are unknown about Tracer that you guys know yourselves? Let us know down in the comments, because I'd love hearing from you guys. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.